Welcome back to another episode of Profitable Publishing. Today we're going to be talking about 5 books that you absolutely need to read if you want to treat your book like a business. I'm Ashley, I'm your host. I'm a book marketing strategist, self-publishing consultant to coaches, consultants, speakers, and service providers who want to package their expertise into a profitable book. Now, just from the start, I want to say that this is not an exhaustive list. There are tons of other books that I'm probably actually going to need to do a round 2 or a second edition of this because there are just so many different books that you should be reading as someone who is either stepping into the author space or who wants to release another book and have it be more profitable or to better reach your readers. And so if you thought that you were going to get away with getting off of the summer reading program that you had when you were a child, I am here to tell you not so fast. It is that time of year. If you're listening to this around the time this episode came out, you need to be reading. And reading can look like listening to audiobooks. It can look like actually physically reading a copy of the book, ebooks. All of that matters. Don't listen to the hype online of folks saying that audiobooks are not reading. It's reading, okay? I'm in the literacy space, and so just trust and believe that that counts. And so today I'm going to share 5 books that I love and that really will help you to transform your ideals about what it means to be an author and what it means to basically kind of marry that with being a business owner. And each of these were picked for a reason. And this was actually inspired by a reel I did last year. And you know how Facebook pops up memories. And so this popped up as a reel of my memories. And I said, I need to record a podcast episode about that because these books are still relevant and they will really help you to shift your thinking and shift your understanding. If you're coming to me and you are predominantly an author or you are jumping into the author space and you only think of yourself as an author, then the whole point of this podcast is to really just flip that on its head and really help you understand that you're a business owner. If you are already a business owner, if you're a coach, a consultant, a speaker, service provider, you understand that there's certain things, certain metrics you need to track, things of that sort. And those should extend to your book. It shouldn't just be that you have your book and your business and they are in isolation. They should be things that work together. And so though you are not going to get those Book It Pizza Hut coupons to go get your free personal pan pizza for reading these, they will definitely pay off immeasurably in your business because your book should be an extension of your brand. As I mentioned, it shouldn't just be something that is like an afterthought. And so these will help you to really kind of process that and to really think about, okay, how can I interweave this into my ecosystem? How can I make this a part of my funnel? How can I use this to support people who want to eventually work with me or who just want to get those nuggets from my book? And so disclaimer, I am not giving an endorsement of the individuals of these books unless I say that specifically. And even then, just understand that I may not agree with every single thing that was written in the books. I'm not saying I agree with it front to back, except for my book, obviously, that I'm going to share with you. Because how can I be a book marketer and not include my book in the list? So, but just to say that take it with a grain of salt. So chew the meat, spit out the bones. If you see something in the book that's like, oh my gosh, that's offensive. Why would Ashley recommend that? Maybe I didn't. Maybe I'm not recommending that part. However, there are great nuggets inside these books. So just like to say that in the world today. So the first one is 12-Week Year. And this is one you may have seen if you're in the business space because it is one that's commonly recommended. And so for this, I came upon this book just seeing it online. And then I always had it on my to be read list because, you know, the list of books that we have on books that we need to read is forever long in a day. But I didn't actually take the time to read it until I was inside of a mastermind hosted by Crystal Swain Bates, who is one of my coaches. And she sold over 1 million books as a self-published author. And so I was at a year-long program with her to be able to build out my publishing agency. The concept of 12-Week Year, if you're not familiar with it, is that you are basically shrinking time to focus on less things. And for me, I'm someone who is typically focusing on more things. And I tend to find that authors are the same way, or business owners are the same way, in the sense of, okay, you got to do this thing, you got to do this thing, you feel like you have to do that and that and that. And honestly, those things are really slowing down your progress because you're basically stretching yourself too thin and it's harder to really make gains like that. And so this book really teaches you how to not minimize your goals, but how to kind of shrink your goals down to where you're focusing on one thing at a time, and then also doing it at a faster rate. Because you're not focusing on so many different things, you're able to actually get more done because you're able to accomplish it at a faster pace. And so, great book to read. One thing that they share is the buffer blocks versus strategic blocks. And I know for me, I have to work in pockets of time because I have 2 little ones and also work a 9 to 5. And so this is something that they mention on page 41 is about having strategic blocks of time versus buffer blocks. And so basically designating certain times to do certain activities. And I know if you are someone who is either building a business or you have a 9 to 5, when you actually get time to work on your business, it can seem like, oh, I got to do this, I got to do this, I got to do this. And you can just keep spinning your wheels and not actually get certain stuff done, but designating this time and saying, okay, during this block of time, I'm going to really focus on this. I'm not going to allow distractions to come in. I'm going to silence my phone. I'm going to put on do not disturb, except for certain people that can get through. And then I'm going to focus on money-making activities. And that is something that is a huge shift for authors that I see, is that the idea that, oh, it's okay to make money. You should make money as an author. That's the whole concept of profitable publishing, is that you should be paid for your work and you should be handsomely paid for your work. In the artist space, in the creative space, sometimes that's not always valued. And so I liked that was like, okay, I need to make sure I'm spending this much time doing income generating activities, because at the end of the day, those are the things that give you the time freedom to do the things that don't generate income, or that give you the time freedom, or the financial freedom, I should say, to hire people to be able to support you. And that's so important as an author. And then they have different blocks that are like buffer blocks that are just like, okay, these are things that still need to get done, but I might not be making money from them, and that's okay. So like maybe answering emails, and let me say it like this. Obviously, these could make money, but they're not directly tied to income. These are things that still need to get done, but they are not directly correlated to that. And so that's just one of the strategies from that. So I definitely recommend that option, and I'll link all of these in the show notes for you to check out. But the biggest things that you'll learn from that book is that you're doing too much at the same time, that you can actually achieve all of these big, bold goals, but you really have to be strategic about the ways in which you're doing them and understand that you should focus on less, and then just less is more. So being able to get that done in a shorter time frame as opposed to waiting longer. All right, the next book is called Write Useful Books, and this is one that my brother recommended to me. My brother's an email copywriter, and so this is by Rob Fitzpatrick, and I actually read this within the last year or so. This one helps you to be able to understand that the goal of your book is to solve a problem that is urgent and that is going to move your reader to action. So when I talk to different authors or people who want to write a book and they say, oh, I want to write a book about this, do you think there's an audience for that? Now, I don't just pull answers out of the air. I'm all about data, looking at what's actually there, looking at trends, seeing those things, but also understanding that your book might be something that's a nice to have versus like, this is solving an emergent problem that my reader has right now, or this is solving something that my person wants to actually solve, as opposed to just like one day I'll do this. And even having that understanding helps you to know what to put in your book, what to leave out of your book, how to make it so it's relevant to your reader. And I talk more about this in episode 7 about finding your reader. So I'll link that in the show notes as well. That does a deep dive of how to actually find your reader and to know what they want, so you can know how to structure your launch, how to write your book, things that sort. But when you think about it like this, your book should be helpful to the reader. It should be useful. It should solve some type of problem. So if you are focused on supporting women who are in ministry, for example, then you're going to want to address certain issues that are going to be prevalent and relevant to women in ministry. And of course, you might even want to pare that down to different types of ministry. And for that particular group of people, they're busy. They have a lot going on. They also don't have a lot of extra time to be able to spend on things that are not going to give them a rate of return, not necessarily monetarily, but in terms of like transforming them or transforming the congregation or whatever the case may be. In that book, I really just reaffirmed my need for data-driven decisions and being aware that your marketing starts before your writing. And that's something that a lot of authors don't understand, or they don't really pay attention to, because you just think, oh, I'm going to write this book and I'll figure out how to market it later. When in actuality, your book should help you to be able to market itself. And it should be something where you're doing marketing processes during the writing process. And they do a good job of outlining that in this book. And so I thought that was one that was definitely important to share. And then also from personal experience, they also, when I say they, Rob Fitzpatrick, he also has a software called Help This Book that I used for my beta readers for profitable publishing with pre-orders. And it really helps to organize your beta readers, and also helps to cut out some of the copying issues that people have seen of like, okay, I gave them a copy and now they put it on the black market. It helps with that a little bit. And then also one of the things, and he also shares this on the cover, these little parts right here within the software, it gives your beta readers the option to tag your book as these things. So like, for example, one of them is like, love this, this is useful, this is confusing, this feels slow. They can just do a general comment. And so for me, that was helpful because, especially coming from the perspective of, I used to be a literacy coach, so I would give feedback to my teachers. And one of the kind of concepts behind feedback is that it should be specific and it should be clear and it should be something they can do something with. And so I like the structure that Rob presents in this book and also in the software, because it was helpful for me to get that feedback so I can know, okay, people really found these types of things useful in my book, so then I need to make sure I include more of those. Or this part, I didn't get too many slow portions, but this part's slow, and so let's tweak that, maybe take out the extra details there. And so I did it for a nonfiction book. If you have a fiction book, I do still think it would be helpful. But on a zoomed out level, the idea that the author has a software that also ties to the book and uses the strategies from the book was just like chef's kiss, because that's what I teach. That's something that I support my clients with. And so it's just like, oh, this is a real life case study of this person's doing this. He charges for the service and it's a reasonable price. Then also he has a community that he supports people with. And so it was just like, wonderful, love it. And then that also helped me to adjust my book. And so I typically I always do beta readers for my books anyway, but having it inside that software was a different experience that was helpful because I was able to compile that data and then also use that to adjust my book. And so like now I get rave reviews for my book, and it helps me to then be able to attract more clients in my audience. And so next up is my book, Profitable Publishing with Pre-Orders, and you'll see my flags and my tabs and stuff. But this book helps you to grow your audience, pre-sell your book, and also cover your publishing costs before you release. So my copy's got all these tabs on it. I'm going to flip through a non-tabbed version. But when I first created it, I did a color copy just because it really helped visually to allow folks to be able to understand and process information more. And so on Amazon, it's the black and white version. But with this, it will help you to be able to understand how to sell things alongside your book so that it best serves your reader. Because one thing I was finding in working with authors is that there's a desire to include a lot of like tchotchkes and knickknacks and things inside of your book bundle or book boxes. And then those things don't really always support your audience. And then also I noticed that people were giving those away for free as opposed to charging for them. And I just thought that was such a weird concept when you could bundle it together with your book and charge an appropriate price so that you're getting paid and also your reader is excited to get it. And so that's one of the main things that I focus on that book. And so in the book, I share my exact pre-order process, start to finish, meaning I break down everything. And it's the exact strategy I use for my own books and my clients' books to help them to be able to generate 5 figures in income from their pre-orders. And I really wish that I had this book when I was first starting out. I had to compile different information. I had to dip into business resources that were out there and really tailor it to being an author, because pre-orders in general are a concept that is pretty normal in the business space. However, doing it for a book is a little different because you obviously aren't going to have the product as soon as you might have like a digital product. And so I decided to capture that in a book, and that's what you can find when you grab that. And so it focuses on how to find your ready to buy readers, how to avoid just adding additional stuff to your book just because it looks cute. And then also really attracting your audience so that they are going to help you to launch your book so you're not doing everything by yourself. And so you can grab that at preorderprofits.com/book, and I'll put that in the show notes as well. And then the next book is one of my favorites as well, and this is Uncloned Marketing. Also have the tabs going here if you're watching on the video version of this. But this is by Audria Richmond, and she is a marketing and launch strategist, and she is one of my coaches as well. And when I first found out about her, just from the cover, you can see how this just like stands out more than other things might. And with her, she really focuses on helping people to be uncloned, which is her registered trademark. And to her, that means that you are becoming the obvious choice in your industry. People are seeking you out instead of always having to pitch. And people are seeking you out in a way where they really have a clarity about what it is that you do and they understand, so that way they can recommend people to you. And so if you're someone who is looking for ways to stand out, or you want to just have an out-of-the-box launch, then she's definitely the go-to for that. And then as an extension, Audria has wonderful programs and services. I actually did a marketing certification through her a couple years back, and it was just a wonderful experience. And so if you see something that she's offering, I encourage you to attend, because she has just such jam-packed resources. But inside the book, it will teach you how to attract your audience, to be able to generate those leads who are tailored to you and excited to be able to support you. And then one of the best strategies I learned from this book was to look at other industries, and then to not copy, but to emulate that, but in your own way with your own like remix. And that's something I think is so important, because all too often I see people say, okay, well, everybody has a book about this, or everybody's got a book, or there's too many people talking about the same thing. And it's like, at the end of the day, we go back to that bread aisle analogy. There are like 50-11 brands in the bread aisle, and people still buy them. They're still in business somehow. Pepperidge Farm still making bread. Nature's Own. I don't know if that's the main company. I think that is. There's all the Thomas's with English muffins. There's all these different companies that are still doing the same thing, but people still buy them and people still purchase them. And so understanding that you have your own unique lane, and that you really want to own that unique lane and really show up as your full self, is really the takeaway of this book in terms of your marketing. And she has other books as well. All these authors have other books as well that you can check out. Okay, the next one is Profit First, and this is by Michalowicz. And I've actually seen him speak, I want to say 3 times, once live and then a couple of times online. And so he's a really dynamic speaker and hysterical. And so he is a business owner who made millions of dollars and then lost it from realizing that he wasn't prioritizing profit. And so for him, that was like an aha moment. And obviously it wasn't just one moment, but it was an aha that he was like, I have to prioritize profit, because that's how I stay afloat. If I don't do that, then that means I can't do anything else. And so that's something that I've really adopted as like a very profit-centric mindset, because not from a place of greed, but from a place of, this enables me to do everything else. So because I make money in my business, I'm able to hire my virtual assistant, and that helps her to have time freedom to be able to spend time with her daughter, who does martial arts competition. Then also that helps me to be able to have more free time with my family, because I'm not worried about only trying to sell a book that I make $5 from on Amazon. I have other things that are tied to my book that help to elevate the experience for my reader, and also to help me to be able to better serve my audience. And so from his perspective, he focuses mostly on business, but I'm just relating it to the author space. But that's something that I see so often, is that so many authors consider, okay, well, I'm not making any money from this, let me write another book. And that's really not the structure that I follow. That's really not something that I think makes the most sense, because at the end of the day, you're only making a couple of dollars in royalties from each book, as opposed to generating tens of dollars, hundreds of dollars, thousands of dollars if you're selling something that's alongside it, and not selling it in a way that you're just throwing it together, but you're very intentional and very strategic about the ways in which the extra item that you are selling is going to support your audience. And so from this book, you will learn different things, such as being able to be profitable right from the start. And for me, I learned about this book my first year in business. Well, my first year in my second business. So for my Chef Fashion Chef business, I saw him speak at that event, and that was in 2017. And so I had an advantage that basically I was able to start up pretty quickly because I prioritized profit. And then it also helped me to make sure that I'm not buying extra random things that didn't really fit with my actual goals. Because it's another thing I see is that maybe you're debating between, should I buy the software? Should I invest in this show or this event? And really with this system, it teaches you money management in a way that's sustainable. It also helps you to feel a sense of accomplishment because so many times as authors, you spend years writing your book, publishing your book, and then you finally get to making the income, and then it's such a small amount that you're just really deflated about it. As opposed to in this instance, one thing that Mike teaches is to generate profit right from the start. So the first dollar that you make, he recommends that you take 50% of that for yourself. So from every dollar you make, you would get 50 cents. And that's up to a certain income amount. And so with that, it gives you, he calls it like skin in the game, that yes, you're doing it because you love doing it, but you're also doing it because you're getting a monetary value out of it. And that's something that I notice that people sometimes can feel sort of like bashful about, like, oh, well, I'm just doing it because I love it. But at the end of the day, things take money. Like you have to have money to do certain things. And so that's okay. Business takes money. Being an author is expensive. It's okay to be excited about getting paid for your work, especially as a creative. Like the idea of getting paid for something that you created out of your brain, like out of thin air, is such an amazing concept to me. Like it's almost bananas that people will pay for certain things. In that instance, you're just like, yeah, I came up with it. It's a unique idea to me. And especially fiction authors. I know I don't typically work with fiction authors, but especially fiction authors, I think about like Star Wars. The fact that like George Lucas, and I'm sure he had a team of writers, came up with these multi-worlds out of like nothingness. It's just bananas to me. And like, look at all of the different options that are alongside that. And so, okay, let's bring it back in. But I say that because when you are compensated for your work, you feel better. You feel like you've actually accomplished certain things. You get a certain satisfaction. And so I'm not gonna belabor the point, but that's really one of the benefits of reading this book, is that it teaches you how to structure, how to pay for things, not just yourself, but also like percentages to save for taxes, because at the end of the year, whenever tax time rolls around, you don't want to be stuck with this huge tax bill. It also outlines how to cover expenses, and then there is room to tweak it. So like, for example, the 50% that you might make per dollar, there is wiggle room to tweak it. So like, instead of doing 50 cents per dollar made, I do 40 cents for myself for how much I allot for me to have. And then I use that extra 10% to cover recurring expenses, or to cover things that are like licensing fee, like different fees that you have to do, because obviously software costs money and things like that. So I hope these books have been helpful for you to get a better peek at some of the ways in which you can start to treat your book like a business. And so just to recap for you, the first one we talked about is the 12-week year, that teaches you how to condense your goals, focus on less to be able to get more done. And then the second one was write useful books, and that helps you to really make sure that your book is focusing on an urgent problem, and how to structure gaining that marketing momentum while you're still writing your book. Then the third one, profitable publishing with pre-orders, that shows you how to grow your audience, to pre-sell your book, and to cover your publishing costs before you release. Fourth is Uncloned marketing, and that shows you how to have out-of-the-box, unique marketing and launch campaigns. And then the last one, Profit First, that teaches you how to prioritize profit as a business owner, because your book is a business at the end of the day. So I will put a link for these in the show notes, and send me a DM on social and let me know which one you have either read or which ones you are going to check out. Until next time, stay profitable.